Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you once again for joining us for another video interview. So this is a video interview series that we do with some prominent figures that we think have very interesting stories or backgrounds that we like to share with all of you. So today I have here with me Shen, and yep, say hi, Shen. And the theme of today's interview is persisting through life and finding success regardless of family background and struggles. So in a little while, you will start to see how Shen's story fits into that theme. But before that, I would like to introduce Shen a little bit because many of you will probably be curious who she is, where she came from, and all that. So Shen is a Sunway University alumnus, and she's actually going to be continuing into her master's in the UK really soon. So bear with me here as I go through some of her background. And because there's a lot to go through, if I make any mistakes, Shen, please feel free to stop and correct me. So here we go. So Shen grew up in a Siamese family in Taiping, Perak, and her mother was the breadwinner of the family, supporting her and her family. And ultimately, education changed her life, and therefore, Shen seeks to change the lives of others through education. And some of her recent accomplishments include becoming a Pradana Fellow and YCLE Fellow, having just graduated from the 2-year Axiata Young CEO Development Program. Shen currently spearheads an initiative to help refugees, to which she was a TEDx speaker for. And she has had work experiences in different sectors, namely higher education, management consultancy, agriculture, and in the government at the Minister of Finance's office. Okay, so with that out of the way, hopefully I did fine, Shen. Okay, great. With that out of the way, my first question is this. So Shen, what was day-to-day life like growing up in Taiping?
Oh yes. Thank you so much, Daniel, for the question. Yeah, growing up in Taiping, so honestly, yeah, I really loved growing up there. I loved my family, I loved my school, my teachers, and of course, Taiping, we were very known for the beautiful scenery and amenities in Taiping, such as the Taiping Lake Gardens, Maxwell Hill, Austin Pool. These are still some of the one of the main tourist spots in my hometown. And of course, my family, I also grew up in a Siamese family, as you mentioned. And, being a minority, essentially my extended family are of many different races and religion because, we essentially we're like very diverse and like essentially like my parents as well. Like my mom is Chinese and like my dad is Chinese, so that's why I'm a mix. So there's like full of mixed races and religions, and yeah, and it's very different. I think culturally as well. So like I grew up, for Chinese New Year's or for New Year's, I grew up eating like nasi ulam, laksa. So it's not really like a typical Chinese New Year dish. And of course, our culture involves like eating with our hands as well, and also like speaking the Siamese language. Yeah, obviously. Yeah, and but of course, growing up in a small town away from the city, of course, comes its the lack of opportunities. Sometimes it can be academically or extracurricular opportunities, and of course, lack of like awareness and exposure, or at least it wasn't to that level that I had hoped for, and not especially like considering my current juniors now in my hometown. And I guess my peers and I managed to get through and get by. And of course, we graduated high school, and some of us are living in the city and working in the city. And I remember when I was little, I guess. So we lived in a rumah murah. So that's a translation for like cheap housing area in Bahasa Melayu. So I lived in like the outskirts of Taiping in a small town called Kabunting. Yeah, so there's a large river there called Sungai Rantin that runs throughout that whole area. And as years by, I also noticed like as I was growing up, becoming taller as well, the river water like becomes more shallow, like the air like surut. Yeah, that is like in Bahasa Melayu. Yeah, and of course, and Taiping, it would rain most days. I still remember that every time when it rains, like the rumah murah's roof was leaking, and the water would just like fall onto the whole house, and all our furniture would be so like drenched in water. I would cry and cry, then my grandma will like hold me in my arms as the thunder like boomed. Then after the rain stopped, then she would just it's something that we're used to, so like she would just casually sweep the water out of the floors, and she would just hang the, that sofa pillows of the old furnitures. Yeah, so she would just, hang them outside. And of course, and of course, I guess my dad, he was working at that time, and also my mom, she's working in the government. So like thankfully, after I think after 7+ years, my mom, who's a government servant, she managed to get a government housing loan, and we eventually moved. Yeah, so somewhat that.
Wow, sounds like a pretty challenging childhood with all the weather conditions that you had to live in and all that. But it's good to hear that you guys made it through high school and managed to get to college and university and eventually end up where you are here today. So that makes me curious a little bit. Did life conditions affect your grades in any way? And how did you make sure to maintain your grades throughout high school?
Oh, that's an interesting question. I think from young, like I've always managed to study and then get good grades. Also because I have a mom, and my older sister would always teach me at home after school. And essentially that every time after school, we don't go to, I mean, back then I didn't go to tuition back in primary school. So they would essentially teach me science, math, how to count. And then eventually, as they were teaching me, I eventually found out that I was really, really good at math. But of course, with the lack of resources and growing up, so many years, without a mentor, or just, online resources like computer, the internet, a smartphone for that matter. So we just didn't know what to do with, or where to go, or how to apply my math skill into like anything at all. Like, how do I apply that into my career? Knowing, so I like knew how to differentiate like calculus when I was in primary school, but I mean I didn't know where to go with that. Yeah. So, and of course, I think at that point in time, my mom and my older sister also did not have the knowledge to advise me accordingly. Yeah. So like thankfully as well, I have gotten straight A's in the national examinations, except for SPM. And reflecting back on the years in school, I think I got straight A's consistently up till I was in Form 4 and Form 5. Because at that point, I think I kind of like gave up on my studies when I turned 16, because I felt that looking at my older sister, who she didn't manage, she got 8 A's in SPM, but she did not manage to essentially go into university. And with that, I thought that I would not be able to go into university as well, because, I may not get government options with my, with what I graduated with. And of course, I mean, we were in no means to pay for private education, and we didn't know there was something called scholarship that existed. So because I realized that I felt like there was no reward at the end of it. Like I couldn't achieve that university, going to university. So I kind of fell through in my studies in Form 4 and Form 5. So, so then I thought to myself, because I have to work. Yeah. So my sister worked after she graduated and didn't get university option. She worked at Starbucks actually. Yeah, so I thought, okay, I have to work too. And therefore I studied less, and then I honed my soft skills and interpersonal skills through the extracurricular activities. Anything that I could get or do, I would just do it. So I was a house captain for 2 years, school editor, I was in Girl Guides. Yeah, I think a lot of like my peers who are in girls' schools always go to Girl Guides. And of course, president for the English Club, Nature Society, going for the choral speaking competitions, choir competitions. And of course, essentially my grades became bad, but except for math and admaths where it came easy for me-ish. But of course, eventually I have been really lucky. I have, gotten a mentor who essentially mentored me and said, "Hey, girl, I saw that you have this grades. Why not try applying for a scholarship?" And that's how it started. Yeah.
Ah, I see. Well, that's a pretty interesting story. Seems like you cope pretty well though. And even though you sacrifice your grades towards a Form 4, Form 5 period, you still manage to make up for it by participating in so much extracurricular activities. And I'm pretty sure that contributed in some way to your success even today. So looking back, do you regret what you did, or were you happy with your decision that you made?
Yeah, I think looking back at it, I would say I I mean I cannot regret it because it has already been done. But at the same time, reflecting on it, I do know that essentially I could have reached to a potential that I perhaps could go for. Like perhaps instead of 9 A's, I perhaps could get 10 A plus, for example. It's
Ah,
just that I think it has been done, and I will move on from it, reflect from it, and perhaps do better in the future.
I see. That's great. It's good that you still manage to learn lessons from times like these. All right. So after high school, you of course ended up in Sunway College. So how did you come across the idea of studying at Sunway College and then eventually Sunway University?
Yeah, that's a great follow-up question because just now I mentioned that I was really lucky to have that mentor. Yeah, so
Yep.
actually that mentor is this lady who came to my school. She's from I think this university agency called Study Excel. Yeah, so she was the one who, like I mentioned, she came and said, "Hey, you should apply for this Sunway scholarship, and they provide you a scholarship to go further your studies in something called pre-university," which was very new to me at a point. And
Mhm.
then eventually, she encouraged me to continue studying at Sunway with the Jeffrey Chia continuing scholarship to Sunway University. And with that, I thought I might get a chance after all. My mom, she didn't go to college or university as well. So she just said, you know what? Why not we just try it out? And, the agency was even so kind. I filled out the application, like back then when, pre-COVID times, we had to,
Uh-huh.
print the forms, physical forms, not
Yeah.
really in a digital era.
Yeah.
Filled out the form with my pen, make sure the writings are nice. And then she couriered, the application for me. Yeah, and then
Wow.
of course, yeah, and the rest is history, I guess. Then I became a first generation college graduate for my family, and she did that for my older sister as well. And eventually, I guess, my sister after working like for almost a year in the F&B industry, not getting government options even after STPM. So then she also then helped my sister to gain a full scholarship at Taylor's University, to which my sister then also, with me, we graduated almost in the same time, and
Mhm.
we successfully graduated from university, I guess. So I think ultimately, higher education changed my life, my family's life, and honestly, thanks so much to the generous support of certain people
Yeah.
back in town. Then I was able to, yeah, graduate, I suppose.
Wow, really inspiring story how you and your sister both managed to graduate around the same time. All right,
Yeah.
so of course you went to Sunway College and Sunway Uni, and then my next question is, what was your most memorable experience at Sunway?
Oh my goodness, that's such a tough question. There's so many.
I hope
Yeah.
so.
Yeah, I think I guess I think I was really lucky. I'm honestly like throughout my time in Sunway, I have been granted so many opportunities. So I'm honestly really grateful towards like the Sunway management, the Sunway staff who helped me, friends, and even honestly, even like the abang security that I am also close to, because like when we run events, essentially we will always need their help, or they look after our safety all the time, staying on the Sunway campus. So really, in that sense, like that memorable experience is like truly this whole Sunway community that I grew up with in my crucial 4 years of my life. Yeah,
Mhm.
so like 4 years is honestly a long time to,
Yeah.
yeah. And of course, other memorable experiences are in, the little things, just fitting across the foyer of our campus, like the common area, just, as I walk across campus, I say hi to friends, say
Mhm.
good morning to my professors and lecturers, and at night while we are in the foyer, with our group of my classmates, whereby we had to finish up assignments till the AM. So, I would, casually just walk, it's in the little things, like I just walk over to the side gate and like
Uh-huh.
outside of the campus. And then I say hi to the Ramly Burger Makcik
Oh wow.
and then buy a burger.
Wow.
Yeah. And of course, we have this piano in the middle of the lobby area.
Uh-huh.
And after midnight, that's when we can play it. And like a lot of times we wait till after midnight and then we can go and play the piano.
Wow.
Yeah, and of course, I think like major formal experiences. I have been roped into like or I've been part of many organizing committees of events. So like essentially me with a team, group of friends, colleagues. They are really really amazing. I learned so much from them and from is essentially like project management, event management. So
Mhm.
we are always like 4 a.m. We just prep the hall before the next day for a conference. We set up the hall, carry the chairs, when we organize concerts, and then we help with the decoration. We had like all the rehearsals right before the main events. And of course, like with that comes like us, not having the capacity or mental energy anymore to drive home. Essentially for us who live like nearby. So we just sleep on the classroom floor sometimes, take a
Oh,
2 hour nap, wake up at 6 a.m., wash up, and essentially greet participants for our events.
wow.
Yeah, and honestly, I think those were really like the really good memories whereby I learned a lot from the many people that I worked with, and really honestly just really honored to have worked and learned alongside these peers, these Sunway students, and of course some of the events that we organized together were the Harvard Project for Asian and International Relations. They had an Asia conference in Malaysia, so they had it like once in a decade in Malaysia. Yeah, so this was the third time that they were going to have it. And of course, the Asia Leadership Conference. What else? The TEDx events. We had, concerts that we organized for like the freshman students and many others, community service events as well.
Oh, you had sounds like you had a lot of memories, had a really fun time, and made a lot of friends while you were at Sunway. That's good to hear that you had a really fun 4 years while you were there, because it's a really long time. It's good
Yeah,
that throughout that long period of time, you have all these peers that go through the same journey with you, and you can all have fun memories together.
yeah, exactly. So
Right.
fortunate. Good old times.
Yeah. So my next question would be about how learning was like at Sunway. So what were some lessons you learned at Sunway that helped you through your journey in life?
Yeah, yeah. I think like in the classroom, yeah, obviously I learned from my many amazing professors, lecturers, with the scope of my degree. So I did like a bachelor's in business studies. So I learned a lot of like business theories, marketing approaches. So that helped a lot when I, go for like business challenges or when I worked in corporate essentially. And of course, I think my favorite subject would be learning ethics and philosophy. And I didn't thought that I would learn something like that in my degree. So I think it was like a very holistic, like it was quite a holistic like 3 year of an undergraduate that I have had. Yeah, and everything that I learned, I have always been able to like apply them in anything that I do, really. And of course, like um maybe like out of classroom, right? So interpersonal skills, I learned that from a lot of like the staff and the friends that I mentioned when we, essentially when we organize all the events, the many, many events together. We learn
Yep.
event management, project management, how to get vendors, informing security guards, and participant management as well. Yeah. And I think above all, I I think I learned a lot of values from my time in Sunway. So, like for example, I learned mindfulness from the staff. I learned to be tactful. From my seniors. I learned how to be empathetic. I learned empathy essentially from my juniors or my peers. And of course, I think ultimately I learned the value of giving back and paying it forward. And I learned that from Sunway. Yeah. And I suppose that is what is driving me in my involvements right now in education-based organizations and initiatives and events. So I guess for me, I definitely believed that I have been granted so many opportunities and people have invested their time and energy in me. And therefore now it is then my duty to pay it forward, to give back. So that's why I do what I do now. I interview and select scholars for scholarships. I mentor underprivileged kids to essentially, hopefully, they essentially also been managed to get full scholarships to essentially go to university and also be the first people in their families to go to university. And of course, I run a refugee organization as well. And what we do is that we award Muslim refugee children with scholarships to essentially put them through school so that they do not fall back in society. So I guess we just do whatever we can in our capacity. I guess, like, in an overall sense, I hope to be able to provide a certain level of knowledge and awareness to the people who need it. This certain knowledge and awareness that I didn't get when I was a child. So it is now my duty to ensure that, these kids, my juniors, are well informed of the opportunities that they have and that is out there for them to know about it, apply it, and essentially when they get it, hopefully it helps them reach their full potential, I suppose.
Yeah. Well, that's a very inspiring way of paying it forward. Normally, when people think about like donations or philanthropic efforts, they would think they need money, right? They need to raise money or provide money. But you're a perfect example that shows that you can perfectly do it just with time and effort. So to some of you out there watching the stream, if you don't have money or the means to donate or give back to society, you could always give time and effort in order to help other people, because in many ways, sometimes time and effort are more valuable to people than money, right? So moving on, I also noticed that you were very active outside your regular study syllabus. You talk about all your events management, your project management and all that, staying up until 4 a.m., 6 a.m. So how do you manage to cope with schoolwork and have time for extracurricular activities at the same time?
Wow. Yeah, that's an interesting question. Yeah, honestly, it was super difficult. I think it was a really tough journey. Like, I have this calendar, and it used to be like a paper calendar. So because before, this is like pre-COVID times, pre-digital era whereby we use now like a lot of Google Calendar Google Calendar. You have to like essentially map out our meetings and schedule. Yeah, so like honestly, I think it's I just remember that throughout uni or throughout like college, it's always like rushing through my calendar, rushing to the next deliverable, the next event, next job, next meeting. But luckily, I would say that I think that this is the trait that got me by. I'm quite detail oriented, so I would have my calendar with me at all times, and then essentially my calendar looks like like with the square pieces of like the dates and the Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday kind of thing. So I would just write all my meetings in the boxes for that day. Yeah, so I guess that helped me, being able to like attend all the scheduled meetings at the scheduled venues. Yeah, but of course, with that, I have had some essentially learning curves also. I still remember in my first year of Sunway, I felt really, really sick because it was just like back-to-back events and conferences that we had to organize or meetings we had to attend. Yeah, so at one point I felt really, really sick and I just could not commit to the next event. So I felt so bad and apologized so much to the Sunway staff because like unfortunately I promised them that I would do something. I would essentially appear to that event to help them with, for example, registration or photography or whatever. But I could not commit to that. And with that, I guess that was such a huge learning curve for me because I vowed to not essentially commit to things or make promises to responsibilities that is out of my capacity. Yeah, that it's quite hard for me to essentially fulfill that promise, I suppose. Yeah, but I was really touched because the staff completely understood the situation and said, "It's okay, Shen. I think why not just take a breather and reflect on this, and it all will be fine. The event went well." Yeah. So from that point, I always make sure that to make sure my calendar do not have any clashes. I have some time for myself as well, for my own learning as well. And that way, like every program that I join now, usually I can perform well, I can commit to it because I have scheduled it in my calendar to commit to it, to a certain task or project, I suppose. Yeah.
Oh, wow. Wow. Looks like it wasn't all smooth sailing for you. So you managed to, but the thing is you managed to learn from that, right? So you put all of your time into all kinds of activities, and then you experience overload, and then you fell
Oh,
sick. But then that's something we all can learn from as well. You know, everybody's going to have a different college experience. Some people are going to want to do everything, like people like yourself, right? And sometimes we got to realize that we can't do everything, and we got to pace ourselves. We got to schedule things properly and work within our limits. So it's a
yeah,
really good
definitely.
example. Yeah, it's a really good example of how you cope with that and then learn from that and applied it to what you do today. So it's very, very inspiring. So I want to talk a little bit more about your family background again. So did your family background affect the way you experience university in any way?
Mm. Um, yeah, yeah. I think definitely yes. I think because I mean, like like essentially the basics is I grew up speaking a different language. I identify with a minority race in Malaysia. I essentially also attend uni whereby like most or majority of the students are like from the city or like from larger cities throughout Malaysia. And essentially, I think one of the things is that when I came here, I came to learn. I came to campus. I came to learn from everyone. I came to attend classes and essentially graduate. So like I was very very carefree when I first started attending uni. Like bright eyed and bushy tail. I just wanted to join everything, learn from everything because it's like a whole land of opportunities, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so essentially, like I think one of the things that I find difficult was that I could not identify with essentially I have been given comments before that hey you should wear nice clothes, you're a girl, you should wear makeup, you should carry handbags. So and I've also been told by peers that Shen, you act too kampong. Essentially that in translation, yeah, I was so shocked when I heard that. Like in translation, that means like people are saying that I act a lot like village folks. Yeah,
Mhm.
I've also been, told by adults that, like, for example, oh, as you're an adult now, you're in university, you should, wear makeup, for example, so that people take you seriously, And of
Mm.
course, like for me, I guess like growing up with a certain value, I perhaps like did not agree with that because like for me, like I essentially don't want to do something because it fits into like societal stereotypes and norms. And of course, I didn't want to fit into this whole gender stereotype that my work or what I do is only as good as I look. Yeah, and thankfully, honestly, like with the family background and the values that my parents have instilled in me since I was young, is always to like be true to myself, do what I want, not be pressured to fit into essentially unreasonable societal expectations, based on my race, gender, or family background, family income, or whatever not.
Yep.
And thanks to that, like I felt that I still like hold true to my values for a bit, and I managed to experience university in my own way, in my own genuine way, I suppose. Yeah, so like yeah, and also I think another family background, this value that my parents instilled in me is also to never discriminate, speak to everyone, not look down onto people, like do not look down onto, like essentially, janitors, security personnel. So,
Yep.
in uni, I felt like I had quite a relationship with them. I greet them, I talk to them, I like, like I really like canal them. I knew who they are, I knew their
Yeah.
names. Yeah, I knew which hometown they're from. Yeah, and it's actually just create all these relationships with anyone and everyone. Yeah, and essentially I'm so glad to have known and met them, and
Mhm.
of course learned from them as well, because essentially they have been like a very pivotal essentially so a group pivotal people in my life on the
Yeah.
Sunway campus. Yeah.
Oh, looks like you experience university and college very different from how most people would. But it's good to see that you enjoyed your time there with your own experience, and you saw things through your own eyes, your own views, and you stayed true to yourself. I think that's super important. Anyone who goes to university, you're going to meet people from all kinds of backgrounds, right? But it's always important to stay true to who you are and experience it the way you want to, without feeling pressured by your peers or other people telling you what is right and what is wrong, essentially. So that's really nice to hear. And also, it's good that you don't discriminate and you make friends with everybody on campus, because like you said, the abangs and kakaks who are there on campus are there to take care of us, right? So they're
Wow.
essentially a core part of the Sunway team as well. So they should be treated as such. So that is something that our viewers can take from, and also hopefully apply it when they go to university eventually. All right, so that was what your life was like in university and college. And then eventually you, of course, graduated. And now you are most probably working. So could you tell us a little bit more about your work experiences, and what were some key lessons you learned from each job?
Oh, yeah. Um, yeah, key lessons that I learned from each job. Hmm. I think that I have been really like throughout the organizations that I have been in, I've been really lucky to have had like amazing mentors slash bosses that I learned from. So like for example, I did my internship at a HR consulting firm, and then my managing director. That was like my first time working at any company. Like big I guess like corporate company,
Uh-huh.
like in the private sector. Yeah, so I did my internship there. My managing director was really amazing. Very garang, essentially strict, but at the same
Mm,
time she could work really, really well, and she was empathetic. Yeah, so she after I finished my internship, she's like, Shen, go out, do go do whatever you want to do, and like you have a lot of passion out there, so contribute your time into the many things that you want to. Yeah, and
mm,
of course, after that, I worked at Sunway Education Group. So I was at Professor Elizabeth Lee's office. Yeah, so I have had a hand in managing the Malaysian youth organizations events that are all happening in on the Sunway campus in the summer. And of course, we did a lot of student events. We roped a lot of students in. I had I had the opportunity to work with like my juniors. Essentially, like I had graduated at that point, so I've managed to work with my juniors as well, and hopefully and essentially like learn from them, and like run events together, I suppose. And after that, I was at a change management consulting firm. And then, of course, after that, I became a chili farmer for a while, for a brief period of time,
oh,
up till MCO.
wow, okay.
Yes, up to the lockdown. And then during the lockdown, I served as a Pradana Fellow. So, to viewers out there, if you guys have heard about the Pradana Fellowship, I would definitely encourage you to apply for it. Yes, so I was working at the Minister of Finance office. I think some of my job entails crafting like initial drafts of the of YB the Guzapos, the minister's weekly public statements, and essentially putting the data out there, public data out there regarding the implementation for the COVID-19 economic stimulus. Yeah, and I guess I was also really lucky to have been roped in for the national budget 2021, Belanjawan 2021.
Mhm.
I was in the communications team for that. And of course, as a Pradana Fellow, what we had to do was to submit a public policy paper,
Mm,
a policy paper of like a policy recommendation to the Ministry of Youth and Sports. So the one that I submitted was, we did it as a team with my Pradana Fellow colleagues in the Ministry of Finance. We did on something with youth and unemployment and entrepreneurship. Yeah.
wow.
And other things that I have done, oh yeah, we accompanied our minister for like state visits. So I have been on the one to Perak and Pahang. So what we do is that we speak to all the industry players, understand the state government's situations, and see how we can help as a government.
Mhm.
And of course, I managed to like I think my minister was also invited to like many events. One of them was me involves a youth town hall and me returning to the Sunway city. So it was held at the Sunway Resort Hotel and Spa. Yeah,
Oh.
so like essentially came back to I cannot escape Sunway. Yeah. So honestly, I think I learned a lot from like from throughout the many organizations that I've been. In MOF, of course, I learned a lot from the communications bosses, special officers. It was also like my first time visiting Parliament, so I learned a lot about political literacy, about nation building initiatives, and of course like a whole thing about our essentially the whole landscape of our public sector.
Mhm.
Yeah, and of course I also managed to get like some skills. Hopefully, I think one of my memorable experiences is after the whole storm of Belanjawan 2021, the national budget, being tabled and everything. I think one of the experiences was us, just taking a breather, and then we crashed a meeting room whereby one of my bosses, a special officer, taught everyone and taught me how to essentially use Power BI, which is like a tool. Yeah, so then of course he also taught me how to do economic research decks. Despite my lack of experience in economy, essentially I didn't graduate with like an economy degree, right? Yeah. So essentially, yeah, and of course I think during my time, I also managed to like hone my Bahasa Melayu speaking abilities as well.
Wow.
Yeah, that
So,
sums it up.
sounds like a very interesting work experience. Many things you did there, especially the chili farmer part. I'm really curious about that. Well, okay, so I noticed in your resume that you also contribute your time for charitable activities every month, like you mentioned a few just now. Could you explain to us some of the things you do?
Oh yes, yes. Yeah. So yeah, just now I mentioned. So I think now on an almost weekly basis, since actually the start of the pandemic, in March 2020, we've been delivering groceries to families in need. Up till today, actually. So before this stream, just a moment ago, I received a text from our volunteer, who is also a Sunway alumnus. Yeah, so he has managed to successfully deliver the last provision to his last stop for the day. Yeah, so really thankful to our volunteers and everyone and the donors as well who contributed in essentially giving back and providing food aid to people in. Other than that, I guess, just now I mentioned that we award refugee children with scholarships to put them through school. So we manage a pool of funds for that as well. We do this monthly. And also I mentor, I think like monthly, I mentor underprivileged kids so that, they obtain full scholarships to go to university. Yeah, the one I mentioned just now. I think twice a year or sometimes 3 times a year. I'm part of this scholarship panel. So what we do is that we interview and select Malaysian students for scholarships abroad. And so I do that like twice or thrice a year. And I think a lot of my time is spent on a lot of one-off projects. Like for example, so last month we ran a second-hand laptop donation drive for the Asun community in Kedah, the state of Kedah up north, under the I'm part of the Axiata Young CEO Development Program. Yeah, so I essentially ran this under the program that I'm a participant of. Yeah, so the devices that we collected, refurbished, and donated, it really helps put the children there to stay, put them through school, make sure that they stay in school and attend to their online learnings. Yeah, so that was really important. That's just some of the stuff that I do.
That's nice. So why do you choose to give back in these ways?
Oh yeah, maybe like a one-liner to answer that, like why I choose back to give. Why did I choose to give back in these ways is, I guess, like ultimately higher education or this opportunity has changed my life, and therefore I'm determined to spend my time, change the lives of others through education as well, and that is why.
I see. Okay. So we're coming almost to an end of this interview, but I'd like to ask you a few more questions. So I'm going to try stretching my time a little bit here. So my next question is, what is some advice that you would like to give to the students watching this video right now, who grew up in a similar situation as you?
Yeah, I think my advice to essentially juniors and students would be, study as hard as best as you can. Please go to school. Try to stay in school. join in as many extracurricular activities that you're passionate about. Please, spend your time contributing into things that you love, to causes that matter to you, causes or and initiatives. Spend your time in initiatives, that affect and help the people around you as well. I always have this saying, or like something that I realize that I do, is that I can't help it to help people who need help when I can help it. So yeah, it's like such an elaborate, yeah. So like honestly, in whatever capacity really that you can give, extend that helping hand. Yeah, because I always like, I guess, resonate back with this quote by Obama. He always says that change will not come if we wait for some other person or some other time. We are the ones that we've been waiting for, and we are the change that we seek. Yeah, I guess I always resonate back into that. Essentially, if you can, in whatever capacity that you do, when you can extend that helping hand, do it.
Well, very inspirational quotes. Definitely something that I could learn from as well, personally. Well, so I think that basically brings the interview to an end. Last thing, is there anything else you would like to add before we call this interview to a close?
Yeah. Just as a closing, like, I would like to extend my heartfelt appreciation to Sunway College Kuching for the amazing work that you do in the education industry, and thank you for transforming the lives of others through education as well. Yeah, thank you so much, and thank you for this call as well. Yeah, Daniel.
Thank you very much as well, Shen. With that said, I would like to say thank you once again to Shen for sparing her time with us to do the interview. We've heard some inspirational stories and advice from Shen that I think every one of us can learn from, even myself. So Shen, to you, we wish you all the best in your current and future endeavors from everyone here at Sunway College Kuching, and hope to collaborate with you again in the future. Thank you.
Yeah, definitely. Keep in touch and stay safe.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Stay safe.